I met in Jerusalem on January 1st, 2003. We got engaged very soon thereafter and married on January 1st, 2004. We were still studying at the time. We were at Hadassah in Jerusalem. That's where we met. And we decided very soon after that we wanted to have children. And we got pregnant very easily. The baby was due in end of May of 2005 and decided to cook for a little bit longer and ended up being 2 weeks late.
This is today, 31st of May 2005. Junior is still here. Junior is big. Junior is heavy. Doesn't seem to want to get out of here.
We had a super easy pregnancy. We would check on the measurements, check on the baby's heartbeat, and check that everything was doing well. And the baby was very, very healthy. I was doing great. We had a great time. I was at 41 weeks and 6 days. There were complications, and in the sense that I started to bleed, so they were like, okay, enough, let's induce this woman.
The induction happened about 9 o'clock p.m. You were progressing nicely. Eventually your water broke. All we could hear was you breathing and Kineret's heartbeat, which was, of course, like a horse, just tuk, 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 tuk. And you were pushing. Kineret was almost born, and in fact she was crowning, and the midwife Jamila was helping you and coaching you along, and you looked at me and you said, "I'm really not feeling well," and at that point you fainted.
At that point, Jamila, the angel coming from heaven, she basically pushed everybody out of the way. She hit the red button to indicate an emergency.
I tried to understand what was going on, and I tried to figure out. Nobody really had any time to talk with me because they were attending to the situation.
So when I passed out, I had an amniotic fluid embolism, which means that a clot, basically some amniotic fluid entered my bloodstream. And the amniotic fluid is supposed to be purely the baby's environment, and contrary to any kind of logical belief, it should never ever enter the mother's bloodstream. And so some amniotic fluid entered my bloodstream, and that causes chaos, and it's a crash. And so I crashed, my heart stopped beating, so I was clinically dead for 4.5 minutes. My coagulation system no longer functioned, so I was bleeding from everywhere. Every single opening in my body had blood coming out of it. And I was no longer breathing, and of course my brain, was not getting much oxygen. And in the meantime, Kineret was crowning at that point.
I remember just focusing and praying and knowing that everything would be okay.
They vacuumed her out, and she had 0 Apgar, meaning it's a measurement they do at birth. She was limp, she was blue, she was not crying. She was unconscious. And so they had to quickly revive her, and the doctors later told me that all they needed to do for her was a little ploop, and then she was like, wah, like back to life.
She was 8 pounds 11. She was not a small baby, and she was ready to come out. She was very long, and so she was healthy.
But for me, they worked on me for 7 hours.
And at that point, my world was torn apart because I had a newborn child, and I had a wife who was on her potential deathbed. And so I had to, in a way, choose between the two of them. So I decided to go to Kineret, make sure that she was okay. And she was in great hands in the staff of the nursery. Then I went back to be with Ilana.
And they put me on an induced coma, and within 48 hours, I was in the ICU, and within 48 hours, my vitals started to fly back up, and I was back. But at that point, there was no telling what state I was going to be in. having not had oxygen to my brain for over 4 minutes, the odds were that I was going to be a vegetable. And so my parents flew in and they were very concerned. And my mom's job was to stay with me in the ICU and to tell me every time I would wake up to remind me I had had a baby. So when they took me off of the medications, I woke up. I had no recollection of being pregnant. I had no recollection of having a baby. I could, and that was very concerning to everybody, but they understood that there could be some amnesia to the whole thing, so they were not too worried about that. I could speak in English to Adee, in French to my parents, and I could yell in Hebrew at the nurses, so we were okay with that. Neurologically, I was okay, but I wasn't myself. Like, I was just not myself, and so they were very worried about what I had lost in the process.
נכון? עכשיו אולי זה פיומה? רוצה לראות את פיומה? אמא רוצה לראות אותה.
So I gave birth on Tuesday lunchtime, induced coma a few hours later, and on Shabbat, they took me off the coma on Thursday. Out of it Thursday, out of it Friday. Shabbat woke up, clicked, and they then transferred me to the maternity ward, and they let me be with Kinneret. And that child, who for 5 days didn't have a mother and fed purely from a baby bottle, started nursing day 5. And so that's why Hadassah Ein Karem and their staff are so deeply connected with us, because they know that not only was I a miracle, but also Kinneret was a miracle, and that for the two of us to be thriving and healthy and well is just beyond any expectations from anybody.
Ilana is often seen as the poster child of the labor and delivery ward.
Right. I would not be here if it wasn't for Hadassah and the staff, for the doctors that worked tirelessly on me, to revive me, to get me back my faculties. And we really, really feel so strongly that they deserve to receive anything that we can give them, if that's even just a little bit that we can give. If whatever amount of money we can send them pays for the janitor's salary, or if it pays for the nurses, or any classes on anything that has to do with mothers and babies, that has to do with obstetrics, delivering. They've done such an amazing job at helping me regain my life and us have a beautiful family and everybody healthy with no concerns whatsoever. We have only them to thank. And if it weren't for Hadassah and their staff, Hadassah Ein Karem and their staff, I don't think I'd be here to tell you this story. I don't think Kinneret would be here to host this amazing talent show. All of our lives would be different.
And we have only them to thank. And of course, God.
Amen.